Can I tell you a secret? I'm just some guy like you in his garage, and somehow I get to turn my crazy ideas into reality for a living. Now, this is a story of how I got thrown into creating dumb things in my garage, and how this has led to establishing a worldwide YouTube audience, becoming my own boss, and having the freedom to create what I want. But it's also about dealing with the challenge of being different and never feeling like you fit in. So where did this all start? Back in 2015, I was living the perfect life in Norway. I had everything a man could want. The wife, kids, good paying job, apartment. Okay, this wasn't actually my apartment. But the truth is, I was miserable. My life lacked purpose and meaning, and I was always coming up with harebrained schemes for some business that was gonna make us millions. I was actually desperate to find some meaning. So, when my daughter was about to turn 2, I stumbled across a podcast where a man called Simon Sinek was talking about finding one's purpose. He said it was all about looking back to the ages between 12 and 16. The things you loved to do back then are most likely your life's purpose. So what did I like doing back then? Sorry, where was I? Building things. I had the idea then to reignite the love of building things by building my daughter a little soapbox car for her birthday. It was going to be really basic, just a plank with some wheels and a seat. Well, as you're going to see in this video, I have a little habit of overcomplicating things. And this soapbox car was no different. It felt so good to work with my hands again like this, but little did I know of the consequences of this decision. But I'll get to that in a little bit. Now, the reaction was so amazing from everyone who saw it, my wife convinced me to put it on the Norwegian equivalent of Craigslist. I posted it with no price just to see how much people thought it was worth. Now, I got some stupid offers of like $1, but I was never going to sell it, and it still sits in my workshop to this day. But from this ad, a gentleman ended up contacting me and asking me to build a 1932 Ford version for his grandson. He wanted it to be kind of rough and rat-roddy. He didn't get that. Instead, I went all out in the other direction, probably making one of the nicest things I've ever built. Now, a lot of these things I'd never done before, including this dovetailed steering wheel. I mean, I am just so proud of how it turned out. Look at that thing. And the upholstery too. I mean, I worked my ass off getting that to look so nice. But I realized that people really didn't appreciate the hand craftsmanship and the time it took to build this thing. There was no market for these things, and I was going to have to accept being miserable. And I was, for nearly 2 years. Don't get me wrong, I built stuff, but just wasn't feeling it. But then all of a sudden, I got some inspiration.
Hey, I'm Justin. Welcome to Backlit Avenger. Today, we're going to be making a lounge chair out of this.
Yes, this was my first official Garage Avenger video, where I realized I was actually a hobo deep down because I was keeping trash and tires down the side of my house, and I needed to do something with it. And for my first video, I decided that I was going to make a chair out of a tire. But the truth is, I'd been asked by a friend to make some backstage furniture that was car themed for a local music festival, and I decided to document this process. But then my wacky brain kept on coming up with these stupid ideas to put in the video. Like this one, where I'm doing a headstand. Or this one, where I'm looking for inspiration. Yeah, It turned out I was pretty messed up in my head. But I thoroughly enjoyed just sharing my humor in these videos, and I think that's what it was all about for me. It wasn't just about making things, it was about sharing who I was as a human. I mean, this was a great start. I felt really good about this project. I think I got like 200 views on this video in the beginning, and I was astounded that 200 people wanted to actually watch this video. So I made another one. After finishing my chairs, I kicked back and had a beer with all my mates. But I soon realized there was a bit of a problem. Yes, this time I was going to build a coffee table from a tire and rim. And this is the first video I actually started to think about story and how much it meant to tell a story about building something. And I think I realized this when I was trying to put the tire on. It was more interesting that I couldn't get the tire on than actually getting the tire on. This then allowed me to bring in other people in the videos, such as my shirtless friend here. And I'd like to think that it kept my audience kind of guessing what was going to happen next. What is this imbecile going to do now? Now that I've said that, I guess you're thinking that this is all staged. But no, I'm an imbecile on my very own. I mean, I'm constantly making mistakes because, to be honest, I didn't know what I was doing. Point in case right here, where I thought it was a great idea to use the Shushugi barn type of wood treatment instead of just buying a damn can of black paint. But this was all the learning process through failure. I mean, I had never really edited videos before and I was getting better at that. And I had never done Shushugi barn burning before and I learnt not to do that. So there's always a lesson to be learned in doing things you don't know how to do. It's not exactly life. Holy crap. Now, I didn't know it at the time, but this was going to kind of be a philosophy of mine. Doing things I didn't know how to do. Point in case, the Batmobile. The Batmobile project was for my son Henry, and it all started here at my local favorite store. See, I had made that soapbox car for my daughter Emma, and I'd always promised to make my son a car of some sort. And I thought, since he was into Batman, I'd make him the Batmobile. But unlike the soapbox cars, this was going to have an engine, an electric motor powering the whole thing. And this motor came from an old kid's ATV, which you can see I've just chopped in half and extended with precision engineering. But like all my projects, I had never really done this stuff before. I'd done so little metal fabrication before. Welding was completely new to me. I mean, a lot of this stuff I'd done on the previous cars, I've gotten friends to do. And I was doing all this work myself, trying to work out how to glue these pieces of trash together to create a real wing like this. And nearly every single part I made had to be remade again, because I ballsed it up. And I didn't make it easy on myself either, creating this upholstered seat that, to be honest, had too much detail and my son really didn't care. But in my own head, this had to look just as cool, or if not better, than my daughter's car. So I put my head down and got to work. And sometimes I'd push myself too far, and I'd work until wee hours of the morning, and then realize I screwed up and have to undo all my work again. But this was under the delusion that I was doing this all for my son Henry. But to be honest, I knew I wasn't doing it for him. This is all about me. Proving to myself that I was good enough. And the outside validation I'd get from others would fill that empty void I had inside me. But at the time, I wasn't ready for introspective life contemplation. No, I had a Batmobile to build. And what kind of Batmobile would it be if it didn't have a weapons system? And my friend Frederick came around to help me build this paintball-powered rocket launcher, which required quite a few iterations. But in the end, we came up with this design that seemed to work amazing. That was until my manhood copped a swift blow. And I realized it probably wasn't safe for kids. Now my manhood decided I had to work out how to make this thing go. And there was no wiring diagram or anything that came with this thing. So it was trial by fire. Now you might be thinking, he just made a mistake. But this guy seems to know what he's doing, and I could never be like this guy. That's wrong. I blew up like 3 controllers trying to work out this stuff. So if I can end up doing it, you can too. I mean, in the end, I got it to work. And I think it's all about persistence and not giving up. Yes, look at it go! Yes! Now, what Batmobile would be complete without a Batman steering wheel? Yeah, this is a pretty sick design, and I don't even know how I came up with it. It's like a mix between a Formula 1 steering wheel and a Batman logo. As cool as the idea was, it was still a lot of work, including a lot of sanding and then some epoxy and then polishing to make sure that it looked super shiny when it was finished. Dude, look at it. I mean, seriously. How cool was that? Now the Batmobile was cool at this stage, but it wasn't Dark Knight cool. Yeah, that's right. I was going to put 4 tires at the rear, and I did so by welding on this pipe as a second hub so that the other wheel could mount to it. There was one last thing, and that was to make a bonnet to cover the battery, which was mounted at the front. Now I'm sure there was a better way to do this, but this is how I ended up doing it, and to be honest, it's good enough. I mean, it looks mad. But what did my son Henry think? Happy with your birthday present, your very late birthday present? Do you want to drive again? Looking back at this footage, it was super cute. But at the time I thought I'd cracked some sort of code where I just made things for friends and family, and then that somehow compensated for the hundreds of hours I was spending in the garage, not knowing what I was really doing to my kids and family. Having not learnt my lesson yet, I made a bunch of projects for my son Henry, including this Captain America shield lamp. I actually think it's pretty tough and he still uses to this day. And with this reaction, you can kind of understand why I thought I was doing the right thing. I mean, the look on his face is just so adorable. And then the reality of it all set in, as you'll see in a sec. Kids just don't care about things.
Yep, he's done.
And we're done.
But I wasn't done making things for my son. Nope. Next up, I made him a bed.
Hello everybody. Hello boys and girls. What are you doing here? Yes, I'm making wood into steel. Oh, Hulk smash! Shut up, Hulk.
But all play aside, this was a serious project. Turning this boring IKEA bed into a 3-year-old's dream. Using some aluminium tape, some black matte spray paint and some steel wool, I set out to turn each of these wooden parts into steel looking beams. And it was a lot of work, a lot more than I ever thought. Now, I'd seen people using this IKEA storage unit as a staircase for these beds, so I thought I'd do the same and just pimp it up a bit. Now, I was just gonna paint the white panels, but it wasn't really my style. So let's do it Garage Avenger style. Really happy.
Not happy, Jen!
Doesn't pop. It's a pop, 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 pop. How does that look? Don't act like you're not impressed. I'd clearly impressed myself, but this bed wasn't complicated enough. So what did I do? Overcomplicated it. I was going to build a hidden passage, put a dimming lamp inside, and make a Backlit Avenger logo. Yeah, not overcomplicated at all. I wonder if I could fit through here. Yeah, that's what happens when you're a dickhead. Right, this panel needs to be a bit special. I think it's quite big and I think it'll look weird if we don't have something on it. So I'm thinking Garage Avenger logo. No, not Garage Avenger logo. God damn it.
Avenger logo shall I have on there? It's so good. I've even impressed myself. That's what I've done. Let's see if the dimmer works. Oh yeah.
And the last thing I had to do was see what my son thought.
Birthday.
So where are we on this journey of mine? We're here, about to do a loop-de-loop.
Hold on tight! Smile, it's fun, look! Hold on.
No more projects for my kids. No, I was going to build the most technically advanced thing I've ever built before for a friend with a drinking problem.
Love you guys.
The sofa beer fridge project came about when a friend asked me if I could build a refrigerator inside his sofa. I of course said yes, but then I had this dumb idea, instead of just having a refrigerator inside a sofa, that it would have some sort of delivery mechanism that would deliver beer from a voice command. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. But like I said before, I was all about trying things I'd never tried before. And this is one of the projects that pushed me beyond my limits.
What the f? How the f? Why doesn't it line up? I need to find my quiet place.
Which led me to record this ridiculous scene. Now, I may have staged this fall, but this is pretty serious. I was wearing a back brace and everything for all these scenes because I was so scared that I was actually going to hit a rock and break my spine. And I always thought, like, I recorded this during the middle of the day. If anyone saw me doing this on the hill over and over again, they would have thought I was batshit crazy. Maybe I was. After all, no one seemed to really understand me, and I never felt like I really fitted in anywhere. But I wasn't thinking about those things back then. I was just thinking about how I was gonna fix this sofa beer fridge and get it working. And when you make a mistake, you just have to try again. And again. And again. And again. And again. And you'll eventually get it. So what was next?
This is what's next. A lineal actuator. I got this in the post the other day and it looks awesome. I like to call it the penis extension.
This lineal actuator was going to open and close the drawer. But there was one little problem with this thing. It could apply nearly 75 kilos of force. And it turned out that that was a little dangerous.
How good is that? Oh, Jesus. What the?
So I devised a spring system that would stop fingers and other things getting caught in the drawer.
Actually, it's pretty good. That didn't hurt at all. How good is that? Ow, it does get a little bit stuck, but it doesn't hurt. Awesome!
Now living in Norway is pretty awesome. It's got stunning landscapes, free healthcare, paid maternity leave, even for men, low crime rate. But nothing is made here, so you have to pretty much order everything from China. And it's a pain in the ass, you're always waiting for parts to come in the mail. And because I was always waiting for parts, I ended up starting a damn podcast where I interviewed people from all over the world that made cool stuff. And I had the pleasure and absolute privilege to interview amazing people like Jimmy DeResta, Ivan Isla, Paul Jackman, Nerdforge, Jocko Whatever, Bob Claggett, and the list went on. But some of the most amazing people I interviewed were those that no one knew about. Like Jonathan Jameson, who had one of the most inspirational stories I've ever heard. And all the stories just like his kept me motivated even when I wanted to give up. But I may have had some moments.
Fuck! Mother...
And ended up in the forest again. Right, back to it. The inside of the fridge had to have a delivery mechanism which pushed the beer into the drawer. And I came up with this idea inspired by the snow tracks of a snowmobile. The fridge itself was going to be insulated using polystyrene foam and aluminium tape to help reflect any heat. And the fridge itself was going to be cooled by these two really big Peltier units, which I thought at the time were big enough. I had even impressed myself.
Have a look at that, guys. It looks legit cool.
But at the time, I didn't know what was coming.
The perspex looks awesome. The lid looks amazing with its aluminium frame and then stuck on with magnets to seal it. And the paddles and everything, the second level, everything looks so good, and I really hope it works. But one thing we do have to do first, I think, is the fact that it is a fridge. So let's see if we can pull it down to temperature. Bring on the time montage.
What could go wrong?
Work for me. Serious. Oh my god. What the How the is it going up in temperature? Jesus Christ. I don't know, babe. Everything seems to be working as it should. It just doesn't get down to temperature. I don't know what I've done wrong.
Could it be the cooling units? Do you think they're too small?
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
I had screwed up big time, And there was only one way to fix the problem, and that was to start over. Now you might be sitting there wondering what the hell is going on. Well, my younger, better looking self is about to explain.
Alright guys, I thought I'd explain to you what I've actually done here. Now you saw I destroyed an old fridge. Now I ripped all the internals out of it and now transplanted it into this thing. Now this is my evaporator box. This is the thing that keeps the fridge cold. And what happens is air is going to come in through here, over the top and bottom of the evaporator coil, and then underneath the dividing glass and out through this fan, and then into the body, cooling everything. So it does this circular airflow motion, dragging the hot air from the top over the coil, and then cold air out the bottom. So I hope this is going to work. In my head it works, and it's been a long process. So let's switch it on and just see what happens. Oh, it's getting cold. Oh, it's so cold. Oh, whoa, yes. Something's working. All right, let's throw this lid on and see if we can get it down to some sort of temperature, even though there's holes all through this thing. Let's see what happens, hey?
Now keep in mind here, as you see me dancing like an idiot, that I've been working on this project for nearly 9 months in between my day job and my weekly podcast episodes. This was a big achievement. And I was nearly there. I just had to work out all the programming and electronic stuff. Yes, I'd bought a bunch of electronics from China. And a couple other things. Come on, baby. Junk mail. Where's my from China? After carefully removing the Wuhan from all my electronic components, I could mount everything and wire it up. And the heart of these electronics was the Arduino, which controlled all the contact relays and the voice control module along with all the sensors. I'd also been doing a bit of coding.
How hard can it be?
But to be honest, I didn't know what I was doing. So I reached out to a friend to help me rewrite the code. But rather than bore you with the details, I was just going to plug it in and show you what all that programming was all about.
Alright, let's test the voice command. Sofa, bear me. Can be tricky sometimes. It doesn't quite recognize you. We'll try it again. Sofa, bear me.
Now remember I said that you probably thought this was all staged, but no, this is real. I really did do this.
There's a wire loose. Hold up. Ah! Shit, motherfucker! What? No! Ah! What the f have I done?
What had I done? Well, I'd blown up a bunch of electronics.
Oh my God.
And you might be wondering why I didn't just quit then and there. But I'd invested hundreds of hours into this thing, and I wasn't going to give up. I mean, seriously, imagine if I'd given up on this.
Rage on that beat, going crazy.
Sofa, bear me.
You might be looking at this thing and thinking, damn, that's cool. I want one too. But it looks super technical and I could never do anything like this. So let me walk you through it and maybe I'll change your mind.
So we know that it works on voice control. So the command of sofa bear me needs to be said in a very short form for the sofa module to hear the right words. So it kind of needs to be like short syllables. Now, what you probably didn't know is it's also controlled by a remote if you don't want to yell at the sofa to bear you. And this is just a relay, a garage remote, which then I've now 3D printed, which is the first time I've ever done this. And that's really, really cool. It kind of blew my mind. I kind of thought 3D printing was cheating, but once I actually like designed it on the computer with my friend Jürgen and we printed it out, like my world has changed.
Babe,
Yeah.
I think I'm pregnant.
Have you seen this thing? This is amazing. It like prints from nothing. And the other way of doing it is through your phone. Now I have made an app for the sofa. You just download it and literally you just press the button and the beer will spit itself out. Now let's talk about the code a little bit. Right, whether you use the voice control module or whether you use the remote or the app, the script runs exactly the same. Now the first thing the script does is it looks for the beer in the drawer. So it checks the sensor. If there is a beer in the drawer, it will drive the drawer out and you'll be able to take the beer. If there's no beer in the drawer, it will drive the chain around and push the paddles around to push the next beer ready to go. Once the beer is in the drawer will then come out and deliver. As soon as you take the beer, the sensor senses it and will close the drawer automatically. If you don't take the beer, it will close automatically in 8 seconds so that the hot air from the outside doesn't expose the fridge too much. So, and then what happens is it will try and load a new beer ready for delivery till when you call it again. So it goes in a sort of endless loop like that until you're out of beers, and to which when you're out of beers, it will run the belt for 10 seconds and then you'll hear an audible alarm telling you you're out of beers and you need to fill it up.
You are out of beer. Get off your fat ass. This project gave me a bit of notoriety here in Norway, being featured in the national news. And some projects after that also got featured in local newspapers, and I was becoming known as the guy that made stuff. I was feeling pretty good about what I was doing, but something inside just didn't feel right. It still didn't feel like I fitted in here in Norway. I mean, I think skiing sucks. I don't own a pair of raskebriller. Brown cheese is I don't own a cabin worth more than the GDP of the Democratic Republic of Congo, and I don't own a boat. I'm sick and tired, though, of being known as just that foreign guy that builds stuff. So today, that changes. Yeah, soon I'll be known as that guy with a boat. Oh, yeah! I'm gonna become a Norwegian sea captain, baby. And that's what I thought I needed to do to fit in here. Boy, did I have a lot to learn.
Right, how do I become a Norwegian boat captain? Well, the truth is, I don't sell oil to the gas-guzzling countries of the world. I don't light my cigar with $100 bills. I don't drive around in my Tesla whilst claiming to be all about the environment. No, I just can't afford to buy a boat. So here's the plan.
Alright, the first step. I've got to find some parts. Now I've got to scrounge around and see what I can get, but I'm going to need a lot of stuff for this. Then I'm going to go over to the internet and find the cheapest falling apart boat I can find and fix it up, combining those parts. Then I'll finally feel Norwegian and they'll say, look, he's so Norwegian. Oh, he's one of us now. Look at his non-receding hairline. Yeah, and that'll be it. Alright, let's go get some parts. But it turned out not to be so easy. And I really couldn't find much that was going to help me out. And on top of that, Tesla was being a bunch of dicks and they wouldn't sell me any parts. So then maybe it was smart to start with a boat instead. There were some real beauties out there, but Jesus! I couldn't afford that. So I headed down to my local store and bought these. And waited till night. Midnight sun. Enough stuffing around. It's time to get me a boat. So still. Now with a criminal record of attempted theft, if I wanted to build a boat, I was going to have to use what I've got. And what have I got? This old above ground swimming pool with a hole in it. No, I'm not Australian. Norwegian. After a bit of mucking around, I realised that race cars have tube chassis. Why can't a boat? Yeah, I was gonna cut and weld this frame together and I'd be sailing in no time. Ah, come on! What's wrong?
Looks like you're out of gas. Plan B?
So no gas means tolerance fits. I'm bolting this bad boy together. Yeah, this is going to be as sturdy as Mum's Hill's hoist.
Nice.
Realizing I made a fundamental design flaw, I decided to calmly start over. After I calmed down, I realized I didn't have to reinvent the wheel again. After all, Norwegians have centuries and centuries of shipbuilding prowess, and it was about time I used some of that. So I went to visit the most Viking guy I know, my good friend Thomas.
So what's up? What do you know about boats?
It was at this moment I realized Thomas knew nothing about boats. I was going to have to work out this one myself. With the frame looking like it could do the job, now I had to work out how to keep the water out. And at this time, I'd recently learned how to do split screen editing, so I decided that I'd just bring in multiple versions of myself. And it didn't fit. Normally I'd push through this kind of thing and figure something out, but I'd lost all motivation. What was even the point of trying to fit in here in Norway? I mean, I couldn't get out of bed, and when I did, all I could do was watch Jake Carlini videos. I was trapped. I just wanted to escape and sail away into the sunset. But I couldn't do that, could I? Because I needed a boat. As I stood there in pain, I realized that this is all part of the process. I couldn't give up now. So I ended up undoing all my work and starting over. Nice. 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 With the clear consensus that the boat was looking pretty nice and the sun was shining, I think it was time to go test this thing. So I thought I'd take it to my local lake where it's nice and calm. Oh, for fuck's sake. Fucking Norway. Norway, I tell ya. Well, I guess whilst we wait for the ice to melt, I'll tell you 3 reasons why you shouldn't support me on Patreon. 1, my humor is only going to get worse, trust me. 2, if you actually sign up,
I'll send you this love letter drenched in cheap perfume, and your wife will actually think you're cheating on her. And 3, these builds take forever because I overcomplicate everything. I even overcomplicate these videos. Trust me, you're not gonna get much value out of supporting me. I'm probably gonna produce 5-6 videos a year. I really do overcomplicate things, don't I? I mean, what could I do to overcomplicate this thing? A propulsion system. Yes! Yes! A propulsion system. How could I not think of that? Let's do that. Damn it, I've overcomplicated it again.
Despite realizing that I'd overcomplicated it, I couldn't get this idea out of my head. I mean, I wasn't going to use my arms to paddle this thing. Come on. I mean, we've got to get this thing motorized. One problem though, outboard motors were way too heavy and really hard to borrow. I had to find a better solution. But it was harder than I thought with all these distractions around me. And I had it. A drill-powered propeller system. I in no way or form stole this from Laura Kampf. Now I wasn't going to go buy a drill and angle grinder, so I headed down to my 2 local junkyards and found these. It really amazes me what people throw out. Just like a new one. Let's overcomplicate this thing. As I started building this thing though, I started to realize one propeller wasn't going to be enough. It was time to double the power. Yeah! Spring was in full swing and all the ice had melted, and it was time to show Norway that I was one of them. And what better place to do that but at the local boat show? But before I could show everybody that I was just like them, I thought it would be wise to test this thing, as I didn't even know if it was gonna float. It floats! Yeah, it was floating and nothing could stop me now. Oh my god! Ah! Damn it, stupid gravity. Take 2. Alright, ready? I was finally Norwegian. Well, so I thought. As much as I really wanted to fit in here, I really started to realize I didn't. Being known as a guy with a boat didn't seem all that it was cracked up to be. Building stuff was way cooler, and that was my jam. So instead of trying to fit in here in Norway, I decided to stand out. After all, it was better to be known as that guy that built the voice-controlled sofa beer fridge,
Sofa, beer me.
or created the ladder light, or even the guy that built his own refrigerated ice bath, than just a guy that owns a boat. But standing out doesn't really mean it's easy to make friends, and I was pretty lonely in my garage. So I had a fix for that too. How was I going to create a friend for my garage? Well, the first idea I had was AI, a kind of ChatGTP robot that would give me high fives and tell me how handsome I am all day. But after doing some research, I found that it was just weird guys making sex robots. I didn't want to be that kind of weirdo, so I'm going to make a puppet instead and be as cool as Barnaby Dixon. Now, if I was going to make myself a puppet friend for my garage, he had to be a badass like Hellboy and crazy like the Animal. Now, with that rough idea in mind, it was just a case of starting. But I'd never made a puppet before, so I gently crushed up some paper to make his head. Satisfied, I then used masking tape to make this template so that I could then cut the foam to make the skull. Now, it did say on this glue that you had to use it in a well-ventilated area, but I didn't experience any side effects at all. Now it's time to make his mouth, using a bit of thin plywood, some tape, and some leather bits. Satisfied how the head turned out, I decided I was going to use the same process to make his body. Now it turned out his body looked a little like a...
Johnson. Yes, sir. Get on the horn to British intelligence and let them know about this.
Despite the childish humor of the shape, it was incredibly difficult to put together, and I had doubts if I could even make this work. But I was inspired by this little turtle's persistence.
Yes, go you little champion! Oh.
Despite that baby little turtle being torn apart limb by limb, I decided to persevere. And after cutting an adequate sized molestation hole, I thought it was time to hunt down some skin for this guy. Now when I go hunting for materials, I like to get back to nature. What's that? Is that... No. Is that the fabric I conveniently placed there earlier for this video? Wow. What are the chances of that? After a quick session of waterboarding, I realized the puppet wasn't gonna talk. Someone had stolen my pencil. I just didn't know who. By stretching the fabric over the head, I could see where I needed to cut to make this template. Then I just had to borrow my wife's sewing machine. Yeah, this sewing machine was going to make light work of this. But then it just kept on getting jammed.
God damn it!
Stroker. So I was forced to sew it by hand. Which took a long time, forcing me to multitask. But I got there in the end, and they were looking pretty sweet.
Nice.
But as I fitted the skin over his head, I started to realize I was still all alone, and I needed to get him finished. Otherwise I'd turn into one of those weird guys getting excited over tool catalogs.
Oh.
Bugger that, I couldn't give up now. and I'd done it. I was one step closer to having a friend in my garage. It was only his arms and legs to go, and I'd have a friend. But again, without a sewing machine, doing this by hand was long and painful. With the leg and foot looking pretty good, the last thing I had to do is close up the seam using what they call a ladder stitch. Now, don't ask me why they want you to climb a ladder and stitch up there, but I mean, I did it anyway. I think it would have been much more efficient if I actually did it in the workshop. After attaching the legs though, it was time to look at the hands. The whole idea of having a wire skeleton in his hand was so that I could manipulate his hand to do whatever I want. But without an arm to attach this hand to, it's going to be useless. So I was in for hours of hand sewing. Lucky for you, I edited this down to 10 seconds, you lucky pricks. Now I heard the best thing for the arms is to use what looks like anal beads. But come on, people already think I'm a weirdo making a puppet. So instead I found some beads that weren't being used. But instead of stringing them all up, I decided that I was just going to fill the arms and then sew the hand on. With the final touches, Hank, as I was going to call him, was finished. Yes, Hank was finally going to come alive and be my friend in the garage.
Where's my dick? I'm naked without a dick. What the f***? Why are my hands bigger than my feet? What kind of f***ing maker are you asshole?
As the barrage of insults came streaming from Hank's mouth, I realized he was my inner thoughts, and I had just spent hundreds of hours making a puppet. I really had to get some friends, even if I was going to have to do it the hard way. By drugging and kidnapping.
Shut up!
It was now 2022, and I built a bunch of projects, including a revolutionary designed Lazy Susan, some sort of weird nose picker, and even a snowplow made from an old hot water tank. All these projects finally led to my channel being monetized, and I was one step closer to being a professional YouTuber. But the money and projects meant nothing to me after I built this thing. So let me tell you why. There I was in my brother's kitchen, getting mad at a project that wasn't going to plan. But this wasn't just some stupid project like most.
Oh God.
No, this was one of the most important projects I had ever built. And to understand why, we need to start at the beginning. This is my mum, Hillary. A smiling, charismatic, funny, strong-willed lady. Mum is always there for her 4 sons, ready to listen to our problems and to help where she can. But it's been quite a few years since I've been back home to Australia with the pandemic and all. Over the phone these past few years, though, we've noticed Mum hasn't been quite herself, forgetting small things, and her health has been a little bit like a roller coaster. It was a little worrying, but Mum was like a rock. No, not heavy and difficult to move, but more iron-willed and resilient. Nevertheless, it was time to head home. 2 weeks before I jumped on that 30-hour flight, however, I had a sudden thought. When I leave again, her memory could get worse, and next time I visit, she might not know who I am. There had to be something I could do. So with 2 weeks in hand, I set off with a mission to make something to help Mum's memory, or at least bring a smile to her face.
Right, Mum's project. My videos are normally kind of weird and crazy, and in fact, that's how this video started. I started shooting some dumb scenes. Oh! Ah! Drones! And I soon realized I wanted to make a video that was more serious, because this was a serious project. I had this great idea to turn the 2 cardboard cutouts of my brother and myself, which stand in my mother's room, into interactive versions of us. I didn't know how I was going to do that, so I jumped on the internet to do some research and found that I wasn't going to get the parts in time before I left. So I'm going to have to make this thing in Australia in between the hours of visiting my mother and visiting the rest of my family, and hopefully I can pull this off. Let's see how we go.
I hope I can make you guys talk.
But who made the pillow?
Mama did. She.
Yeah.
You, right?
You have a bit of that Danish?
Half, and that's you can have the other one.
I think I just had to share the joy with someone, so I was just calling you because I worked it out. So look this up. Love the necklace. So I know it works, which is awesome, but I have one more day before I head home. So tomorrow night I am going to put the pump on and get this thing finished. I was finished. Looking good, Mum. And I was about to go down and deliver this thing to Mum. And then this happened. So it looks like I'm not going to be able to get down to Mum and deliver this thing before I end up going home. So, you know, some things are just not meant to be. My mother unfortunately passed away only 3 months after I made that thing. Although I never got to see her smile in person, I was told that my device brought joy and laughter to everyone in the nursing home. And that's all I could have wished for. My mother's death affected me more than I cared to admit. See, I kept on thinking about my mother's regrets, and if she had any. And that made me reflect on my life. I didn't want to have any regrets at my deathbed. Saying that, maybe I was going to regret strapping 2 jet engines to a kid's sled. This project started when I realized no one here in Norway was using street sleds anymore. I mean, I didn't understand. They were super fun, and these ones in Norway even had space for your friends. I think the problem is that people seem to be addicted to their new fancy electronic toys and gadgets, instead of good old-fashioned fun. So I think it's about time to bring back some old school fun by upgrading the street sled to 2024.
how are we going to modify this street sled into the year 2024? Well, we're simply going to strap some jet engines to it. But before you get too excited, this is not for me. This is going to be for my kids, and we can't exactly strap real jet engines to this thing because so instead, we're going to go with a safer option and use some EDF fans that spin at a measly 80,000 RPM. But rather than bore you with the details, I think I'll just get on with the build and explain along the way. What'd I miss? Get this. This guy's gonna try and kill his own son by strapping some jet engines to that thing. I'm gonna need a couple more of these for this shit show.
Now if we're going to power this with EDF turbines, I had to work out how many and how big. So simply using a luggage scale, I worked out that it took about 3.5 kilos to get my son moving from standstill. Then, whilst he was moving, it only took about 1.2. Now I'm no rocket scientist, so I just figure if I double the amount of thrust it takes to go from standstill, that should be enough, and hopefully my son won't die. Now that I ordered all my parts, it was time to start looking at the sled. As you can see, this street sled is looking a little tired and used, and that's because I found it being thrown out on the street. Yeah, street sledding's so dead in 2024 that people are just throwing these out. So I feel like it's only justified to bring it back to its former glory before we go any further. With our sled fully disassembled, it was now time to clean up all the parts. Starting with the blades and bumper. Once all the rust was removed, it was time to look at our wooden frame. So these parts were pretty weathered, so I did the best I could. But sometimes, sanding just sucks.
What do you reckon? It looks way nicer, I think. It does have a little bit of character still, because I couldn't get rid of all the weathered look on the wood, but the red looks awesome. However, we do need to strap some EDF turbines to this thing, but they haven't come yet. So instead, we're going to work on a braking system and upgrade the handlebars.
Alright, how do you stop on snow and ice? Well, I wasn't sure, so I went looking for some inspiration. Now I like the simplicity of this brake on the snow racer, but if you hit any ice, it's absolutely useless. But then I remembered in another life, I was an ice skater. And we'd use a hockey stop if we wanted to stop quickly. What if I combined the two? So I started off by finding an old pair of children's skates. The plan is to make a foot brake that will replicate the angle that you use in a hockey stop.
Hey, which one of you bags took my ice skates? Mother. Ah!
This dickhead!
Right, where were we? Yeah, the brake.
I needed to make something that was going to be able to hold the blade in position. So I found this angle iron and a bit of flat bar, and just began to fabricate from there. Once I'd grinded back my horrible welds and given it a lick of paint, I cut this piece of aluminium deck tread and pop riveted it on. With the blade bolted in place, all I needed was a spring. And this mousetrap had a perfect one. Now before I go test this brake properly, I need to fix the handlebars. With the handlebars now in place, it was time to get this bad boy outside and give it a test. But out of nowhere came a warm spell, which meant we had to leave testing till it got colder again.
Well, that sucked. Lucky for us though, these came in the mail. Yeah, baby, let's go! Right, what's the plan with these? One of these goes either side of the chair, but now what we've got to do is find a way to mount these, so I've got a plan.
Since it was going to be a while till it got cold again, I thought, why don't I learn Fusion 360 and 3D model the housing to hold the turbines? How hard could it be?
Well, not that hard actually. It's kind of intuitive for me. Sorry to disappoint, guys. Yeah, now I just got to send it to the 3D printer. Alright, our 3D parts are finished and they look pretty good. Except when I tried to assemble them. I soon realized that I made some mistakes on designing this and it didn't quite fit the EDF turbine. So we've got to slightly modify this because unfortunately the 3D printer I borrowed had to go back to its owner and we don't have time to print them again. So we just have to make do with what we've got.
With a little bit of careful sanding, I managed to get the parts to fit a lot better. But then, in the end, I still needed to quickly print a spacer so that it would fit properly. Next up was the mounting bar for these turbines.
So what do you guys think? Man, where's the beer holder?
Genie man.
Beer holder? Really? Oh man, I gotta finish this thing to show you guys. Alright, how do I power these things? Well, simply a big ass battery feeds the speed controller, which then feeds the turbine. But there's a little problem. These things run off servo controllers and I have a thumb throttle. And believe it or not, these don't actually talk together.
Yeah, I'm not talking to you. I'm not talking to you either.
Now, we have a couple of options, but the best option I think is to actually go with an Arduino because then I can put a safety switch like this in the circuit. So if something goes wrong, the kids get out of control, that pulls off, the engines die, and hey presto, no children are killed, hopefully.
With the serial monitor telling us everything was working. Supposedly, it was time to plug this thing in.
Fucking hell. Oh my God! Holy sh**! Yes! Oh my God! Did I closed that door? That opened, right? Ready?
Well, it's safe to say that the jet street sled has blown my wife away. And the last thing we needed to do was tidy up the batteries and electronics before we can go and take this thing out and test it properly. At this point, I want to say a big thank you to Thomas from White Space Props for 3D printing the last parts for me. What a legend. And a huge thank you to all my patrons, as well as some amazing members at Horten Folkeverksted. Now, let's go street sledding like it's 2024.
For those sweet nothings in my ear again?
The engines is rad. They just like landed on a airplane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, ready? Yep. So, yeah, you didn't even give it full gas. So you went 27. Wow, that's cool.
Daddy, I beat the record.
What'd you get? 32. That's amazing. Here, someone hold it. I'm gonna go first. This is actually pretty sick. Like, this is meant for kids, but this is so fun for adults still. Especially on the ice, man. It's so good. I was looking at you for too long.
Got it on camera.
After I'd had all my fun, I decided to give my friends a go. And it was at that time I realized that this project was more than just bringing back street sledding to 2024. This is about bringing back community, where people that normally wouldn't hang out together come together over a crazy idea like a jet-propelled street sled. But what other crazy ideas could I come up with? Maybe something even more stupid. Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation. Well, about 2 months ago, I was suffering from the dreaded man flu. Doom scrolling on Pinterest, I then came across this. Then I uttered these words.
I could build a better pellet go-kart than that.
And before you knew it, in my fever, I'd bought a bunch of go-kart parts I couldn't afford.
Right. That brings us to this point where I've spent way too much money. But there's no going back. Let's go find ourselves a pallet. What I miss now? The twat bought a bunch of stuff he couldn't afford for a stupid project. Nothing changes, mate. Well, I can think of one thing. Get him out! There's an industrial estate somewhere around here, and hopefully they left some pallets around. I feel like such a creep. Like slowly rolling around. There was people there just looking at me, just
New lead on Facebook Marketplace. There's a place that says they got a couple of pallets. Hopefully I don't look like a weirdo.
Ew, bird shit. All right, we've got our pallets. We've got a couple of different types, including one covered in bird shit. So what's the plan? Well, the idea is to turn these pallets into like a Indy car, Formula One car type of go-kart, but making sure you still know it was made with a pallet.
With the basic chassis now complete, it's time to look at the front and rear axles. Now the rear axle has two bearing carriers that hold it in position, and I couldn't just bolt this straight to the pallet as the wood is too soft. And neither could I bolt the steering spindles to the pallet for the same reason. I was going to have to fabricate a solution.
Sake.
As I continually screwed up these brackets, I begin to doubt if I could even make a pallet go-kart better than that guy on Pinterest. But I persevered.
That's better. All right, fourth time lucky. Now, I don't understand why I was getting this part wrong all the time, but because you're a f***ing hack. Shut up, Hank. Anyway, I was gonna just bolt these brackets to the side here, but I really don't trust the wood that it doesn't split. So I think what I'm gonna do instead is get a bit of square tube and weld one of these on each side, and then at least the front end of the car should be semi-symmetrical and strong, I think. You think? You f***ing hack. Oh, Hank. Our spindle brackets are welded on crudely onto ends here, and they're gonna work awesome. But I can't actually go any further with this because I ordered the wrong parts. The hub does not fit the wheel, it's too big. So I'm waiting for the new parts to come in the mail, which means we have to turn our attention to something else, such as the engine mount. All right. Our engine here has a lot more torque than your standard lawnmower engine.
And I was all like, and he was all like, shut the f up.
So we need to mount it properly, because to be honest, I don't want to die.
plastic snapped.
How am I gonna fix this? Oh, I can fix it. No.
With some washers used under the engine mounts to tension the chain, it was time now to look at the brake. By cutting out a notch into this angle iron, I was able to mount the caliper straight onto it. Then after positioning it correctly, I just welded it onto the engine mount.
Well, this project's starting to look a little dodgy, to be quite honest. I'm questioning a lot of my decisions on this project. You know, is the engine mount strong enough? Is the brake in the right position? I mean, have you seen my welding? It's pretty shocking. I don't know what I'm doing wrong there. But anyway, what do I care? It's a pallet go-kart. So, what's next? Well, our hubs have arrived finally, so we can mount the steering.
To mount the steering rack, I welded on this bracket and bolted it into place, then cut a hole for the steering column. Then it was just a simple task of bolting on the tie rods and the wheels. Happy with that, I moved straight onto the brake pedal. But before we went any further, I thought, why don't I mount the steering wheel and see how it feels to sit in this thing?
I think that's good pedal distance, isn't it? How did I f this up?
I'd put the steering in backwards.
No. You're a f***ing hack.
Hank was right. I was a hack. But I'd never made a go-kart before, so of course I was going to make mistakes. Yeah, I was pissed. But that was what this was all about. Learning through failure.
All right, I fixed the steering off camera, but when I was fixing the steering, I noticed that the chain had loosened itself, which meant that these beams underneath weren't strong enough, so I've changed them out with some steel square tube, and I think that's stiffened it right up. But man, I keep on making mistakes on this thing. So I think I haven't got the exhaust yet, so I can't do the electronics and the fuel until I work out where that's gonna sit. So what I'm gonna do instead is continue working on the foot pedals and the cockpit.
Now I'd already worked out how to do the brake pedal prior to the steering debacle. Now it was time to look at the throttle. So using a similar technique to the brake pedal, that was done in a jiff. Right, the seat. It had to be a little bit comfortable. Like a real racing car, like a bucket seat. So after cutting some slats off this pallet and fixing them to this contoured shape, I had myself a bucket seat. But I think it's safe to say you should wear some pants when sitting in this one. After securing the steering column a little better, it was time to look at the gear shifter. By threading the end of the shift lever, I could then fasten a link rod, which then would be attached to a hand shifter.
What? This is so sick. This is like a real sequential gear shifter in a race car. Oh, I can't wait for the engine to be revving and it's so sick. That is one thing though we haven't tested yet, is the engine. It's come all the way from China and I still don't know if it actually runs yet. So maybe it's wise to do that. I think you should wire it up and give it some fuel and hopefully it will work. And if it doesn't, I'll probably cry.
Now, I'd never wired one of these engines up before, but it seems straightforward. I mean, just connected this wire up to this whatchamajig, then plugged this thing onto that doobie, and then I plugged this whatchamajig also into that other thingamybobby, and yeah, I had one wire loose, but surely I didn't need that one. And just fuel this bad boy up. Let's give it a go.
All right, with this on now, if I push this button, it might start. Well, hopefully it will turn over. So I haven't primed any fuel. Let's just see what happens. See if it actually turns and sounds like it's gonna go. Here we go. What? It nearly started. Again. Ooh, it needs a bit more gas. Let's get a bit more gas. Ready? Ooh, nearly. Sounds like it's a little flooded at the moment. Let's give it a little air there. Let's give it into first gear, hey? Yes! Woo! I can't believe it worked! This is gonna be sick! Woo! Yeah, baby! Alright, that was sick. Fire coming out of the exhaust port and everything. We know the gears work. We know the engine works. Whew. But we can't leave it like this, can we? Can't have the fuel just flopping around like this. Can't have all the wires just dangling around. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to tidy all this up, and then I think there's some finishing touches I need to do, such as a stupid rear wing and a front splitter for sure. Let's go. Let's get this finished. I can't wait to drive it. It's going to be sick. Just stay there. Oh, that was so close. Yo, Cliff, stop mucking around with Blaze's screws. Blaze? Yeah, Blaze, our patron. First, Blaze. That has to be a made-up name. Second, patron? Well, I think that's his name. And patreon.com, a place where you can support artists and creators. Blaze believes in us so much, he's willing to give us $3 a month to pay for screws. $3 a month? What a f***ing tight ass! Shut up, Hank. $3 a month may not sound a lot to you, but when I'm building these crazy expensive projects, every little bit counts. So let me get this straight. I financially support you with the equivalent of half a box of screws a month, and I get what? Well, besides the knowledge that you'll be helping me build these crazy projects, you'll also get to join the GA Nation, where you get exclusive behind the scenes content, you get early release videos, and you can get a whole heap of other benefits depending on which tier you sign up to. So where do I sign up for this GA Nation again? Just click the link in the description or visit patreon.com and search Garage Avenger and you'll find me there. Hey, here's an idea. How about you get on with the damn project? You might actually get some patrons.
Hank was right. I didn't need to finish this project, but I was still waiting on the damn exhaust. But surely I could just give it a bit of a test run without an exhaust. Then like magic, the exhaust just showed up. And after a quick flute solo, I could bolt this thing on and make some small tweaks. We're ready to take this out and give it a real test run.
Yeah,
That's the track we've got to drive.
That is so good.
Although my ego started this project to one-up some guy on Pinterest, it had become much more than that. I realized as I saw the smiles on everyone's face that this ridiculous project had become a catalyst for igniting one's inner child. With so much to worry about these days, to be able to give my friends and family a few minutes of carefree joy was well worth all the time and money.
I was crazy.
So
What
good.
have you built? It goes faster than it has any right to do.
Yeah, agree.
And it understeers like a bitch.
Oh, it's not good at steering, right? It was 2024. I'd found the balance between work and family life. I was somehow making a living, doing what I love to do. I'd embraced being different, and I had the freedom to create whatever I wanted. Like a drift shopping cart. But how did I get here? Well, it all started at my local store.
Right, that brings us to this point. So what's the plan? I don't have one. I had this idea to turn this into like a crazy cart type of thing, but that's as far as I got. But I already see that the center of gravity is way too high on this thing. So I think the first thing we're gonna do is chop off the undercarriage and we'll go from there.
Before I went any further, I thought maybe I should actually check if I fit in this thing. I didn't.
Bah! You look like an idiot! Shut up, Hank.
I was way too big for the shopping cart, and I wondered why a 39-year-old man was even building such a thing. But I wasn't going to let that ruin my drifting dreams. So I decided that I just had to cut the back out. I mean, who needs spine support anyway?
That's better.
All right, now we know that I actually fit in this thing. Now we're gonna work out how to make this crazy cart actually drift. So how is this crazy cart gonna drift? Well, we're basically gonna use caster wheels. Now, when you have the wheels like this, They want to hold straight and true. And then when you tilt them back up to their normal position, they of course want to swivel 360 degrees or whichever way the momentum of the cart's going to be spinning. So that's the plan. We're going to make a lever mechanism which holds the wheel like this, and then we pull on that lever, it straightens the wheels up, and then we start drifting. Hey, drift this! Dude!
Alright, first up we had to make a frame to mount our wheels, using some square tube I had just lying around. After welding the frame together, I thought it was important to grind back my welding shame to avoid weeks of depression after someone leaves a nasty comment. Once I drilled the holes for the caster wheel bolts, I had to work out how this thing was going to pivot. To make our caster wheels pivot, we were going to need to make a hinge. And again, because I didn't plan this thing through, I had to weld some extra supports in there, making this one of the most overcomplicated rectangles you've ever seen. Now I decided instead of welding the hinges to the shopping cart, I'd build a subframe instead. That way everything was independent and I could adjust things as required.
Right, our rear assembly is all tack welded up, but I've decided to leave it tack welded together because, to be quite honest, I'm a little skeptical about my design. I mean, I chose these big wheels mainly because they look cooler, but every other design of a crazy kart, drift kart thing I've seen uses small little caster wheels. So I'm wondering, like, have I made a big mistake here? So far it works as it should. I've got these little stoppers here to stop it pivoting too much, and a lever to pull it up into the upper position so it can start spinning. I think we need to now look at the drive wheel. So what are we going to power this with? Well, a 2,400 watt electric scooter. Now all we have to do is harvest it for its parts.
But then the fear kicked in, and I just kept on looking at it thinking, I just spent $600 on this thing. What if I cut the wrong wire and then... I don't have that kind of money just lying around.
Hey, snap out of it, you wuss bag, and get on with the damn project!
Hank was right. I just had to get on with it. The first step was to disassemble this thing so that I could harvest the parts I needed. I was going to need the battery, the motor controllers, the front wheel and forks, along with all the handlebar controls. But it wasn't easy getting some of these parts out. Now, because the original head tube arm didn't allow the wheel to turn any more than 45 degrees, that went in the bin. To get me out of any trouble, I was going to need the wheel to spin 180 degrees. So I came up with this overcomplicated mount system. This overcomplicated mounting system wasn't just designed to keep me out of trouble with the wife. No, it was designed to make you think I was smarter than I actually am. This mount was going to allow the wheel to spin 180 degrees, and it was going to have a 6 degrees rake angle to make sure it was stable at speed. I'm real smart. Right, all we needed was a steering wheel and to upgrade the handbrake linkage. And since no one was crazy enough to drive my 5-speed pallet go-kart, I thought I'd steal it from there. But as I fabricated these parts, I couldn't help but think, I'm a 39-year-old man making a drift shopping cart. What has my life come to? I mean, seriously, look at me.
All right, that was sick. Now we learned a couple of things from testing. First of which is my wife cares nothing about my well-being. Actually, no one cares. Shut up, Hank. Second, the cart is a little unstable, so we're gonna have to fix that. And third, the handbrake is difficult to pull with the leverage, so we're gonna add some springs to help with that as well. Then after we've done that, I think we can start wiring up the electrics.
Now, to fix our stability issue, I was going to use the original caster wheels from the shopping cart that had some sort of weird Yeti nether regions hair in it, and position them a couple of millimeters from the ground. First problem fixed. Now it may look like in this footage I'm stealing the springs from my kid's trampoline, but I maintain my innocence. This is clearly an AI generated video. At least that's what I'll tell the kids. And then using an offcut from the shopping cart, I made a hook. Second problem solved. Now someone told me once you should remove all the zinc coating from a galvanized part before welding it. But what's the worst that could happen? Help me, Pierre! Oh God!
Woo! Hey, who the heck is Pierre? Oh yeah, Pierre, my patron. He's a hero, you know. He supports me financially and morally on these crazy projects and videos. Wait, I don't get it. Well, people like Pierre can sign up to donate as little as $1 a month to support me in building these projects and videos. In fact, if I got 100 patrons, then I could probably do this full time, which means more videos and crazier projects. Well, if that's the case, don't sign up, people. It's hard enough dealing with this guy on the weekends. Oh, shut up, Hank. Look, if you like these projects and videos, then please consider supporting me on patreon.com. There is a link in the description. And just remember, every little bit counts. Now, where was I?
Oh yeah, the controls. The idea was simple. Convert the hand controls into foot controls. Simple, but effective. Now, rather than making a custom box for the battery and electronics, I thought I'd just use the original scooter dick. Yeah, I know what that sounded like. That's just how I said it. So just deal with it. Now, there was only one major part left, and that was the seat. I found this hoverboard cart on the Norwegian equivalent of Craigslist. It was $15 and it was adjustable. And it was done. Let's get our drift on. Now all this drifting was making me hungry. Those snacks were satisfying, and it was fun playing around, but how would my shopping drift cart compare to a real drift car? To give myself the best chance, I thought I should do some practice. I was unstoppable. This kid had no chance. Until that point.
It goes 50 k's on that straight and it gets all swirly.
But there was no time to complain about my bad engineering. No, a 17-year-old boy was warming up. And this is the moment you've all been waiting for. But this is actually what happened. Yes, I didn't actually get into a legit drift battle. I mean, I'm not that crazy. Saying that, this project had me doubting the whole way through why a 39-year-old man would make such a thing. But this project was so fun to build and drive, I think that was what it's all about. And if that's all you get from my journey of mine, then I think I've done my job. See, I get to come in here every morning with a hot cup of coffee and the freedom to create whatever I want. And I may not make millions, but I think for me, that's the best life I could ever live. So if you're inspired by my journey, then I encourage you guys, go make your ideas reality. Thanks for watching. Oh, I've been holding that in for a long time.